Have you ever asked yourself, what are those habits that can push you forward in business and in life? Habits is something that we rise on. You rise and fall on habits, you rise and fall on leadership, you rise and fall on relationships. And these are all habits that you need to understand. Well, folks, today we're going to do a deep dive into habits and leadership in business. And I want to assure you that you're going to be having a lot of nuggets that can really inspire and empower you to take more informed business decision and life decision. So I want to encourage you to call a friend and tell a friend that Habits and Money, we're on air and we have a team of dynamic personalities here with us to journey through this conversation. With me today in studio, I have a number of dynamic personalities, but just before I get to the dynamic personalities, permit me to share with you who are the sponsors of this program. Today's program is sponsored by One Degree to Success. Now, in the event that you're wondering what is One Degree to Success, this is a unique platform that has been built out specifically for business. On this program, you will learn about the art and science of success. And yes, there is the art and science of success. And what this program does is do that deep dive to help rising stars in business and the average person to have a much better idea as to how to position yourself for success. It begins by looking at what is success. So you have a definition of what is success, and success exists on three different levels. Now you need to know this. Secondly, it moves on to look at what is art, and you need to understand art. In this context, you learn about art as strategies and tools and processes and systems. But knowing this is what positions you with the right tools, helps you to have the right tools that you can apply in for success. And last, on this platform, you also learn about science. And that's how to view success not only from an artistic perspective, but it's how to view success from science. What exactly is science? Science always gives you predictable outcome. But I'm going to pause here for now and encourage you to go to the website. All right, go to this website, which is shown on your screen, bestsellerportal.org. And guess what? You can read up and you can learn more about One Degree to Success. Now, having said that, I want to introduce my team. I have Clement Frank. And in the event that you're reaching Clement Frank for the first time and you're asking, who is Clement Frank? Well, Clement Frank, he is an economist by profession. He is also a trained leader, trained by one of the top leaders and thought leaders in the world. And he's about to release his new book. Welcome, Frank.
Welcome.
I also have Shivani Sinarain, and in the event that you have never met Shivani Sinarain, Shivani Sinarain is a very dynamic personality. She's a lecturer at one of the top universities in the Caribbean. She's also a serial entrepreneur, and she's a humanitarian. She's also a project management practitioner. Great to have you, Shivani.
Thank you.
Next we have okay. Next we have Peter Goscott, and in the event that you never saw or met Peter Scott, he is a theologist by profession. He's very deep with the word, and he is a humanitarian. He's also the brain behind Legacy Chronicle Human Growth Program. And in the event you're wondering what this program is all about, it is all designed to help in fostering sustainable human development. So I want to welcome all of you to the program today. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Very great. Great, great,
Mhm.
great. It's a wonderful day.
Awesome.
Great week to
I
come.
trust. Well, everybody look as though they got a mother's dimple. So that means that you guys had good rest there over the weekend, buddy. They say you have slept your way to regain your mommy's features. Huh?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Today, is a joyful day. And it's a joyful day because we get an opportunity to give service. And today, I want us to look at habits and leadership. I also want us to look at leadership and business. And I know with the level of expertise that we have, we are likely to look at this subject from different perspectives. But what I want to do, I want to jumpstart in the process. We are currently developing and refining a thesis that we call the science of success. And why are we developing this platform? We're developing the platform because we see millions of people across the world, including academics, who have a fair degree of success in their lives, but then financially they are still struggling. So, a large part of this thesis is dedicated to really help rising stars to unlock the secrets to success. Having said that, I just want to share with the public some of what we are looking at as it relates to the topic today: habits and money, habits and leadership, leadership and business. One of the concepts that we have coined, we have called it evidence based leadership. Now, what exactly is evidence based leadership in the context of habits and leadership and business? What evidence based leadership helps you to understand is three important concepts. One is how to think ahead as a leader, two is how to see beyond problems as a leader, and three is how to take informed action as a leader. So these are things that you want to form healthy habits around: the habits of thinking ahead, the habit of seeing beyond problems, and the habit of taking informed action. Now, let me give a more graphic picture to what I'm saying in this context. As a rising star in business, one of the things that you need to strive in business is access to capital. But as you think about capital, are you really thinking ahead of capital from the perspective of not only knowing that you need capital, but are you able to ask yourself, what is the best capital for my business based on the stage that I'm at? For example, you should be thinking ahead about what are the best financial instruments that you should be using. For example, at the stage of your business, do you need debt financing? At the stage of your business, do you need credit financing? At the stage of your business, do you need equity financing? Because debt operates different from credit, and credit operates different from equity. For example, if you take debt financing as a rising star in business, you are saddled with monthly debt obligation, and you need to know this. Are you thinking ahead of this? Are you thinking ahead of how this is going to impact the cash flow and the scale up of your business? The possibility that if you're not thinking ahead of this, you may be digging a hole to undermine your success. So, as a leader, you want to think ahead about this. You need to understand what is the best financial instruments for you. Another example, when you think ahead of these things, you begin to also recognize that credit finance operates different from debt finance. For example, with credit financing, you may be able to have access to what we call 0% APR financing. And what this means is that you can access capital for 6, 12, or 24 months at 0% APR. Now, that should be music to your ears because you now know that your business can access capital and you don't have any interest to pay for this period of time. You're only paying back on your principal balance. But are you trained to apply evidence based leadership, which is going to force you to think ahead of the type of financial instruments that you need to drive the success of your business. On the other hand, you now have what we call equity financing. Now, equity also operates different from debt and credit because with equity, depending on how you select your equity portfolio investor, you will not be saddled with monthly debt obligation, or you would not be saddled with the 0% APR. But guess what? You're now exposed to what we call annual dividend yield. So, what this is saying is that when you attract equity investors into your business portfolio to grow and scale your business, your focus now is on paying out dividend yields. So it means that the daily income, the weekly income, the monthly income can be reinvested back into that business to drive the business success. So when we talk, I know this might be a complex interpretation or a complex demonstration of what thinking ahead is, but we are talking here business. And as a rising star in business, it's not enough for you to say, I need capital. It's equally important for you to understand financial instruments and how to select the best financial instruments depending on the stage that you're at in business. Now, if you don't understand what I've just said, it means that you're not in the position of strength to apply evidence based leadership to your business. And the three pillars again, evidence based leader, they're trained to think ahead, they're trained to see beyond problems, and they're trained to take informed action to achieve a desired end results. So these are habits that I've just spoke about. The habits of thinking ahead, the habit of seeing beyond problems, and the habit of taking informed action is vital leadership skills for you to have. Now I will expand further on the very first concept that I've talked about, which is thinking ahead. In finance and in business, are you thinking ahead and what does thinking ahead really means to you? We will expand on that concept and I will look further at how to see beyond the problem and what it means and how to take informed action and what this means. So I'm going to pause here for now. And as I said, I know we have dynamic leaders here and they all I know will present different leadership habits for success in business. So I will now turn to Frank and ask Frank to chime in on his thoughts on what are essential habits and essential leadership habits to have when you want to be successful in business. All to you, Frank.
Thanks, Gary. To my listeners, I want to look at the habits of effective and successful people and leaders. But why are leadership habits important? Leadership habits are behaviors that executives, entrepreneurs, and other leaders use to effectively lead their teams. However, not all habits are equally beneficial. Successful leaders, they find ways to incorporate as many healthy and beneficial habits into their daily lives. So they listen to their teams, plan ahead, adapt easily, for instance. But on the other hand, it is easy to fall into the trap of using poor habits daily. And certain leaders choose to always go with a popular decision, avoid making tough decisions, and ineffectively delegate tasks. And these habits diminish the chance of success for anyone. So, by avoiding these bad habits and utilizing specific beneficial ones, you can avoid the many mistakes ineffective leaders make. So, leadership's habits are important because leader, leaders in different fields require different skill sets and habits to become exceptional leaders. For instance, if you're taking the time to carefully select your clothing, That may be beneficial to the owner of a clothing company, but it's not so important for a remote leader. In general, leadership's habits are simply repeated behaviors that are done by any leader. However, for them to be beneficial leadership habits, you should be able to measure how the new habit positively impacts your business or positively impacts your team. And the most brilliant leaders across the world tend to use similar habits, and these habits help increase the odds of long term sustainable success. They help individuals effectively communicate with their team and make a good first impression, boost productivity, and so on. So, a few of these top habits include giving recognition to hard workers and praise to people. Recognition is something nearly all people crave. We want to be appreciated for our hard work. And the same is true with employees. When bosses leave hard workers in the shadows, they become less likely to perform well. Again, individuals feel unnoticed and unappreciated if their work are not acknowledged. In fact, according to Harris poll, 63% of employees state their bosses did not recognize their efforts enough. So simply acknowledging someone's efforts could motivate them to achieve far more than you think. You need to practice active listening. If you wish to be an effective leader, ask for input from your team. You will gain immense insights when doing so. I smile because I've had this experience just the other day. And this includes a better understanding of workplace culture, employee relationships, employee goals, strengths, as well as weaknesses of your team, and even more. And you can also understand if your leadership style is well suited to your employees. Active listening also makes employees feel listened to and valued. They are acknowledged as an important member of the company when this occurs. So encourage team building by listening to employees. Be decisive is number three. Be a confident leader. Do not shy away from making tough choices. Quickly gather as much information as you need, effectively process it, and formulate an action plan. Then act on that plan. Try not to back away from your initial decision unless it truly needs to be reconsidered. Remember that as a leader, you have the ultimate say in any decision. And if you see some employees continuously performing poor, speak honestly to them. If the behavior continues, realize it is best to terminate them. Decisions like these may cause some tension in the team, but they are necessary for your long term success. Number four is be confident in yourself and your team. Your confidence and your mannerisms could be reciprocated by employees. After all, you are an example of how to act and make decisions in your company. Ensure that you are confident in your skills. And this is crucial when making quick decisions and building confidence among employees because confidence helps leaders make devious more effective. They do not have to constantly second guess themselves, thus slowing the decision making process. Plus, confidence helps you remain calm in tough circumstances. Number five is trust your team. You should be equally confident in your team as you are in your abilities. If you let your team work effectively without autocratic management, they will continue to work to the best of their ability. Create a balance of laissez faire and authoritarian leadership styles. Give your team the freedom to show you trust them. However, ensure that the work always gets done. The more you, the more your team proves they're effective workers, the more autonomy you should give them. Ensure you trust all your team members. You cannot, and I repeat, you cannot have untrustworthy employees, especially if you're a new business owner. I'll stop here for now. Over to you, Gary.
All right, great. I'm going to come to Shivani shortly. But I want to say this. I want to thank those persons who are viewing this program from across the world. Today, we are reaching over 50 countries. And today, we have over 35,000 persons who have subscribed to two of our platforms. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the growing audience on LinkedIn. I can see more persons are beginning to choose and tune into LinkedIn. And I want to thank you for taking the time to support in this platform. I want to also encourage you to like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on YouTube, and because you will be the first to get these content that we are bringing to you on a regular basis. Now, with that being said, Frank, I just want to chime in a little bit on what you would have said. I love that you emphasize the concept of leadership. And I do believe that everyone is in a position of leadership. If you doubt it, remember you owe it to yourself to lead yourself. If you may not be leading an organization, but you owe it to yourself to lead yourself. That means that you are in a position of leadership. And I want to talk about something very quickly, because as a leader, you should understand what is the ecosystem of gratitude. Now, you may not be your own boss, but guess what? You have a job. You should show gratitude. You have friendship. Show gratitude. You have a bright future ahead of you. Show gratitude. You have life and health and happiness. Show gratitude. Now, most people, you do not have happiness because you never show gratitude. You replace gratitude, which is a state of having, with a state of permanent wants. When you change that from a state of want to a state of having, and you begin to show gratitude, a whole lot begins to unfold in your life. Because guess what? Gratitude can be leveraged as a springboard to happiness, and happiness can be leveraged as a springboard to attract success. Over a period of time, I will tell you more about this as we do a deeper dive into the science of success. But I'm going to pause here and I'm going to turn to Shivani. Shivani, I would love to hear your perspective on the concept of leadership habits, leadership in business. All to you, Shivani.
Thanks, Gary. Now, one thing you
You
said
mute.
was,
Welcome.
you hearing me, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
One thing,
hearing you.
one thing Gary said was the habit is to think ahead. You have to develop that habit to always think ahead. And in leadership, that to me is such a big thing. And it really, when you don't see it happening, it means that these are skills that you need to develop. And I have seen it, and I have not seen it. So this is a very important aspect for me in project management as well. Whatever project that you have to do, you need to think ahead. Now, I also want to bring forward, I don't want to look at project management in a silo, meaning you're just looking at the beginning to the end of the project, which is what we have taught, right? You have a particular project and you start and you finish, and you have to look ahead within that framework itself. But projects fail because not only because of the particular aspect of the project that you're doing, but it did not is not sustainable. So we are not looking ahead of how this project now is going to fit into the big picture, as we say. So thinking ahead is a concept that we have to do a lot more of. We have to, break it up and bring it back together if you're working on a particular project. And not only break up the project and come back again, but you're looking at how the project now is going to fit into the whole context of the organization. If it's an organizational framework that you're doing, so you're thinking ahead. So the example, let's say I'm starting up this coffee shop, this bistro. It's a project. I'm not going to only be looking at start and finish and where people will actually just come to this facility now and have coffee and tea and what have you and have something to eat. Yes, that will be my phase one, but I have phase two, phase three, phase four, which is different aspects of how the project will grow. So we can't look at something in silo. We can't look at something in silo. It will start with one-off project, but you must continue the whole sustainability of the project, which is business and which is proper leadership. As you say, I want to think ahead. But over the weekend, it reminded me of this topic. Just reminded me of something, which is adaptability. This is a key trait that will help you now to think ahead. How can you adapt to situations? How are you going to be seeing it for the long term then? How can you adapt to something? So you have to be able to be open. You have to become more creative. I would say you have to be able to become more creative. Look for inspiration. That's what we have to do. You have to look for inspiration to develop this trait. So you see me always walking around, and people might think I'm crazy, because I'm all over the place. But I, I, I probably may come across a little crazy and think frank, but at the end of the day, I am trying to get inspiration.
Hmm.
So I went to, well, in Trinidad, we call them the panyards, right? And the
I'm
concept,
seeing an angel. I'm seeing an angel, and you were talking about craziness. Me know what you're talking about.
right, exactly, exactly. Good, 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 good. Oh,
It, it's
boss,
it's a good
don't
kind of
really.
crazy. It's a good kind of crazy.
Right, but Gary, you're getting free coffee. Don't worry, don't worry. You could come and you could get the free coffee. You don't have to name the time. I'll give it to you for free, right?
That can't be coffee alone,
Right,
It
exactly.
can't
We'll
be
stop that
coffee
conversation.
alone.
We'll stop that
I'm
conversation.
working too hard.
Gin and tonic.
Yes. So, getting back, you see it. You throw me off with the gin and tonic talk now, Frank. Right? So adaptability, it happened over the weekend where I went to these Spaniards. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we promote the steel pan. Of course, everybody knows that, right? Now, the steel pan is this musical instrument. So when I went there, I was very, very amazed at how I can use some of these techniques in playing pan and their concepts in the actual teaching of project management and the entire setup and pre-setup and post-setup. And I was like, wow. I come to these Spaniards all the time and I just never really took it on, so to speak. But now I'm going with a purpose, right? So I'm becoming more inspired, and it's helping me now to adapt how I train the content that I'm going to put out, all by using different types of stories, right? So it's a storytelling approach in learning and development. So, what I wanted to really share, these are habits to develop, and how do you develop them? You have to look for inspiration. You have to look for inspiration probably from all over. I'm looking for inspiration really. I may look in my country, I may talk to you, I go all over, you're traveling, you are being inspired. Another technique that I'm using to adapt to situations is to go back to your past. Listening to things from the past, you can evolve it now into some new content and how you can do things. So, inspiration is a big part for me right now. I don't know, probably is the years, the numbers going up, Gary. So, I'm looking for inspiration. And this is how I'm going to get the inspiration or how I'm getting it. I'm going back to the past, thinking about certain things, and then I can evolve it now because of technology. Technology is allowing me to adapt. And the other point is, you go to local, we forget that you have situations right in your homeland that you can look at and you open up your eyes. So these were two things that happened to me. Adaptability is you need to get inspiration to be able to adapt to situations as well. And of course, it helps you a lot in thinking ahead. And it helps you, as Frank, as what you say, is to become more confident. How could you become more confident? as a leader. You get become more confident when you are inspired and you know when things are working and people are saying, "Wait, yeah, that's a good thing, Frank. I really believe I learned this." So confidence is built when you get information properly. And as you said to what you were saying, Gary, evidence based, it
Yeah,
forms
evidence.
evidence based. You can't
Yeah.
become confident if you don't do that. So for now, that's what I'll say, right? Thank you.
Uh, Great points, Shivani. And I really love that you state that you like looking back, um, because I think when we look back, we are seeing historical data. We're seeing lessons to learn from. We're seeing practices to avoid. And only this weekend we had that conversation also, because very often we hear leave the past behind.
Yeah.
And sometimes we hear you're too futuristic.
Mhm.
So you are stuck between a rock and a hard place. But I think when you become a critical thinker, you know how to dispense with thoughts associated with when persons say leave the past behind, because that's not what they're saying when they're saying that. All right. And they cannot, that's a generalized statement. And it should never be a generalized statement when you have so much of history, so much of richness, so much of wisdom to draw upon in the past. So I just want to add that little bit to what you would have said, because I love the fact that you go ahead.
No, sorry, Gary. You just reminded me about something when you said that you can't just forget your past all the time. You have to learn from the past.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
Spencer Johnson, what he said was, be in the present, learn from the past, help create the future, realize your purpose.
Exactly.
So,
Love
and if you go on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that is my headline there,
it.
right?
Love it. Love it. You see, this is why we need so much of critical thinkers, in whatever we do today, because very often I see that persons are socialized into a way of thinking.
Mhm.
And if you're not a critical thinker, all you do is digest what you hear and you live accordance with what you hear. But you need people that can push those realities and discover. That's where all of innovation and creativity comes into play. But we'll expand on that later on. Master Peter, how are you, sir? You're mute.
You was just saying that I'm fantastic to be a part of.
That's
To see Shivani, the beauty. I don't care about you guys right now, but just to look on my camera and see a beautiful face right there. It's a great day to start. Great way to start the day.
right.
You,
We
I
got
told
stuff.
you to try to
Right.
get the coffee free
Pe-
too, you
Pe-
know.
Peter, Peter, you gotta remember you're a pastor and you have a wife, right?
Well, guess what? I'm just talking about
Right.
you right now. I'm just talking about what I'm doing
I
right
can't
Right.
believe you said that, Frank. I can't believe.
now. Frank,
I'm gonna talk.
Frank, Frank,
Right.
Frank was
Right.
that didn't say it first. That's what is happening.
No, you're right. You're Peter. You are right. You are right. You
Right.
are right. And you are
Right.
right, Peter. Yes, yes, Gary.
Frank, hear me out. We have to sabotage his audio and his video, because you're gonna cut our portion down. You're gonna cut our portion
Nah,
when we go to Shabadi's
nah. You
cafe.
see the thing, but he
Because you
can't
see
cut.
how I smiling so much.
He
Hearing
can't cut.
anything. I'm not
He
hearing
can't.
anything from Gary and from
He
Peter. Go
can't.
right ahead.
He can't cut. He can't cut our portion because for you, he not gonna be eating chicken. It's not special thing. And I don't use gin and tonic. It's chai tea.
All right, bye. I give up. Peter, on to you, buddy.
Yeah, it's always a delight to be here because the topics that we speak about
Yeah.
is so much in tune with what is happening in the
Yes.
marketplace. We realize that life is becoming increasingly problematic, and how do we navigate as individuals, as human beings? I've been over the past couple of months, and well, over the past 3 years, rather. I've been looking at, how human beings in general, you know, we have endangered so many of the life forms that we engage with where life is concerned. In the marine, in the marine environment, in the the land environment, so much of life has become endangered by human beings. And then over the past couple of years, we realized that even human beings now have become an endangered species. When we a lot of human beings are feeling threatened, themselves, human life is feeling even threatened when we look at the increase of what they call artificial life, natural life, and the consciousness, human consciousness is no longer feels as if they are at the top of the food chain. So as we used to be, now we feel threatened that there is something superior to us, something that can think faster, something that can produce better, something that can do much more. We are being outrun by what we have created. So when you think about that lines in the area of human growth and master planning, master planning becomes even much more an important conversation that we need to have, because we have to now begin to think, how do we get back to the place where we can be the one that is now mastering? How can we compete? Human beings now are competing with artificial intelligence, natural intelligence, intellect, natural intellect is now competing with something that can outdo it at a much faster rate. But then we must understand that we are the ones who created the artificial in the first place. So we are the ones who have to tap into our humanity, because there are certain aspects that intelligence, as far as the artificial intelligence is concerned, humanity as a whole, in what we do. And so a lot of times we speak here about the soft skills, and we realize that we have to go back to those soft skills of understanding what makes us human in the first place, and how do we navigate ourselves, and how do we create a collective of individuals around ourselves that brings out or shapes our humanity. So we design what we're calling the master plan technique. And the master plan technique basically just bring us to come just bring us back to understand that, look, we have to tap into our humanity, and understanding humanity is for us to understand life, and that we are a part of a broader picture. All right, so the master planning, we break it down into, and we're talking about habits and leadership. So habits and leadership now, individuals, it's about responsibility. We have to take responsibility, and understanding responsibility, we do understand that we operate in broader sectors of how life works. So as a person, then I have to take responsibility for my personal life. So we have our personal life master planning that we must work upon. And then we're a part of as an individual, I'm a part of a collection of other individuals that we call the family. And family works best when it is a part of a broader collection of other families that we call the community. And each of these three levels require cooperation, and that we operate at a corporate level. Now, all of this, Gary, within the master plan technique, we have to now focus on how do we actually navigate in the space that we call life. And what I do understand that most persons, as we go through, as I said earlier in my conversation, is that the practices of humanity overall now is beginning to threaten even life and how life operates. And what I do find with how life operates is that life is designed to protect itself. Life is designed to protect itself from whoever. So what we find, and we're living in a world now where we are seeing that we're talking about climate change, and we're talking about how the model of the earth, how it is operating, and so we have to make changes. But then the way how I look at that is that what we are dealing with is that life, or the climate, or the and when we talk about life now, we understand that there are three dimensions to life. There is the Greeks call it bios, which we got biological life from that, and it calls life is interpreted as suki, which is a psychological, and the zoe, which is eternal. So there is, within the context of the master plan techniques, now we have to understand these four dimensions now. And the four dimensions that we have to understand is life, how, first of all, life and the way how life works, life within the context of the way how laws work. So we have life in the way how life works, but then we got to understand that life is based upon a system of laws, and success in life is dependent on understanding that life is based upon laws. If we're going to succeed where life is concerned, we have to understand that life is based upon laws. The more we understand how laws works, is the more we will be successful where life works. And for an example of this here, we talk about this. This is what we do talk about when we come here, because if we want to succeed, and we also talk about leadership in business, right? But if I'm going to succeed where business is concerned, then I've got to understand that business is based upon economic laws. There's a way how economy works. There's a lot there is a set way how finances and how money works. And the reason why we're having so much failure where finances is concerned is because the large body, or most of humanity, does not understand the laws that governs money. Then if we're going to be successful, laws, understanding laws again, is understanding that how biology works. Life, there is the biology, the biological life, and there is we speak here earlier on. You were speaking about the success, or how the science of success. So there are certain routines that governs, and if we're talking about habits again, then there are certain practices that we just have to have it. We can't curtail it. And when we're talking about laws again, Gary, we got to understand there's a difference between laws as it pertains to the real elements that keeps life together, that protects life, and human rules. Human rules, I can break it without consequence if they don't catch me. But where laws are concerned, whether somebody see me or not, I have to face the consequences immediately. Uh, well, the law of gravity, I can't say I don't believe in the law of gravity. The law of gravity doesn't care whether I believe in it or not. If I break the law of gravity, I'm breaking myself. So understanding how life works within the technique, the master plan technique, understanding how laws works within the master plan techniques, then understand leverage. Right? We got to understand that there is a leverage. I think there's a famous quote that give me enough leverage and I can move any obstacle. Something within that vicinity, the quote goes. Give us enough. If we have any structure that is standing in front of us, just give me something that I can, a leverage, and give me strong enough and long enough, I can move that thing. So when we understand leverage and how we can actually coordinate our resources against obstacles, then we will move forward. And then lastly, for right now, leadership, which now ties everything together, because as a person who's a leader within the master plan technique, then it means that we come back to the terminology of responsibility, taking responsibility for who we are, what we do. I can't blame anybody else for where I am. These laws that we're talking about, life in what we're talking about, leverage in what I'm talking about, has to do with leadership, personal leadership. And when I take responsibility for who I am, what I am, and I apply this to life, I apply this to laws, I apply this to leverage, then we can begin to have the kind of success that we are desirous of having. But lastly, before I come back, Gary, is that the master plan technique also take into consideration that life and laws that we're talking about, that we are not the master. I am not the master. The leadership, I have to come to the consideration, and I think this is where the big issue that is happening, where how we operate within the context of life, because human beings is actually shaking his fist in the face of life, without understanding that there is a design, and there is a greater master over life and life designs, and all these issues is coming to play because human beings want to be masters. And as I said, as I opened up, we are understanding that we are not masters, because we are wrecking the life personally, bios, the biological systems around us. We are, and now, to the degree that we are now an endangerment to ourselves. So the one thing that I think that we can do is to understand, as a leader who is seeking to become a master, the first thing I have to embrace in my way to mastery is to understand that I'm not the master. There's a greater master who is in control of life, who set the laws, and who give us the leverage for us to succeed. And when we can do that, we can begin to make some headways. You're mute, Gary.
Yeah, I was saying to the public, there you have the view of a theologist, because he will always give you things from a biblical standpoint. And of course, biblical realities help to keep us grounded. But Peter, I want to take you up on one point, and that is humans, the human species is challenged more than ever today. You're perfectly correct, but I want to show some facts on this. Shivani would have also mentioned the term adaptability. And I do believe in today's world, humanity, they are challenged today more than ever to be adaptive to an ever changing environment. The changes that are taking place is not because of natural causes only, but you also have man made causes also. And just let me reflect on some of these changes. You would have mentioned AI, so I wouldn't talk about AI. But when we look at things that the global economy has to adjust to, whether you know it or not, and whether you rise to the occasion or not, um, it will ultimately have a play on your leadership. But when we look at Ukraine and Russia, that has affected global trade. Now we have looked at Israel and Palestine, and is now expanding into Iran. All of this is going to have not only devastating effect on thousands of people within that environment, but because these are trade blocks, goods and is passed through these environments. When you find certain essential commodity cannot flow, it creates scarcity. And what a law of supply and demand says, we understand what it says. So you have massive inflation is going to start to take place, and that's going to have massive trickle down effect, not just on a particular state, but a global economy. So in this way, I can see some of your points where people are challenged, humanity are challenged from across the world. And if you don't have, in Shivani's context, an adaptability game plan, you can fall victim to what is happening. Let me now expand on some of the points I was making early on. And this is where evidence based leadership is so important. But just before I go into that, I want to also conclude by saying this. Today, we are supposed to be having what we call a modern society, an advanced civilization. And if this is what we call an advanced civilization with so much of human atrocity that is taking place, we have to pause and really rethink, what we are actually saying, because there's a lot that is left to be desired. And I would really wish that the smartest and brightest people in the world can come together and heal the world instead of hurting the world. Um, but let us go a little deeper into the concept evidence-based leadership. As I said at the beginning, evidence-based leadership really helps you to think ahead. And I gave a definition of what thinking ahead is. But very often, as you begin to think ahead, you begin to see all the problems instead of the solutions. So as you think ahead, two things you're supposed to be seeing: the problem and the solution. But the main reason of thinking ahead is because you want to see beyond the problem. Most people are not able to do this. So you get stuck in the problem zone. All right. And this is why we bring it to the next point, which is seeing beyond the problem. Great leaders, and when you want to be an evidence based leader, is how do you train the mind to start seeing beyond the problem? So, yes, in the first context, I look at you thinking ahead of the right financial instruments for the business. Now that you think ahead of this, do you know exactly what approach you need to use to attract it? The possibility exists that depending on where you are geographically, you may not have all the choices that someone else may have. So, are you trained to see beyond this as a problem? So, evidence based leadership is what's going to help you to start seeing beyond this. So, you know that this is the right financial instruments for you, and you know exactly how to position yourself to see beyond it. But I want to push this a little bit more, because seeing beyond the problem is stepping out of the comfort zone. But when it comes to finance for the business and money management, it's much more than just thinking ahead of the right financial instruments for the business. And you need to have the right leadership here. This also entails you asking yourself, now this is what I need. How can I access it? How can I access it? And on this platform, we have talked to you a whole lot about financial instruments. So if you're listening to us and you're asking the same question, now that you may need equity, you may be asking yourself, how can I access it? An example, you can reach out to us. All right, you can reach out to us, because that's going to help you to not only see beyond the problem, but get beyond the problem. Because part of what we do, we represent multiple institutions that help you, the rising star in business, to access capital, whether it's debt, equity, credit, creative financing, hard money lending. We help you. So what we do, we provide an outlet for you to see beyond the problem and get beyond the problem. And I'm bringing some real cases. So as you start to think about the challenges, it must be very clear to you in evidence-based leadership how you're getting beyond the problem. Another concept for us to look at here as we look at seeing beyond the problem is what we call capital leverage. Because one of the challenges that we see happen very often with rising stars, particularly so in business, you access the capital, you learn about the capital, but then you struggle to leverage the capital into what we call income producing asset. So you see, when you leverage capital, two things can happen. You can leverage it as a liability, and you can leverage it as an asset. An asset is where it's going to generate positive return, ROI. If you leverage it as a liability, it means that you're losing. And very often you find that this happens. And that's why we continue to emphasize that access to capital is not necessarily the where it all, it's not the beginning and the end. Because in leadership, one of the habits that you want to have is to ensure that you have a strategic capital leveraging game plan. And the only way you can have that is what is based on what the evidence is saying. Do you know how to leverage and up leverage capital into income producing assets? Do you know how to leverage it in the right way? So, in our context, as we talk about evidence based leadership, when it comes to capital, there's a lot for you to unlock here and to be able to apply these techniques to ensure that you're not only accessing, but you understand how to leverage and you have evidence that if you leverage capital in this particular way, it's going to give you predictable outcome. It's going to give you targeted performance outcome. It has to be based on evidence. In our program, we go deep into this to ensure that you know what you're doing when it comes to not only understanding financial instruments or accessing capital, but how you leverage. The last concept that I'm going to share here is on the evidence-based leadership when it comes to capital. We also talk about capital mitigation. Now, to the average persons, perhaps this might be trivial, but I want to say this to you. When it comes to capital, if you're not thinking capital mitigation, I would often say this. You're leaving a negotiation table of finance, not only leaving the crumbs on the table, but you may be leaving more than half of the cake on the table. And let me give an explanation why. If you are not looking at capital mitigation as a leader in business, it means that you might have never heard about amortization schedule. It means that you might have never heard about debt leveraging tools. It means that you might have never heard about debt mitigation strategies. Now, if you fall into this category, it simply means that you're in a major challenge. You're in a major challenge because it is the ability to understand these tools is what's going to enable you to reduce the cost of capital.
What's
Is
that?
what's going to enable you to identify smart ways
I
to
didn't
up
put it in.
leverage your excess
I didn't
liquidity
put it in.
that can help the business to attain major financial advantages. So I'm going to pause here for now because I know this is a complex concept, but I just want today, while we do with some soft issues, today I choose to deal with financial leadership and things that you need to know to position yourself as a great leader in business. You need to master these habits. I'm going to turn to Frank now as we begin to wrap up today's program. Frank, I would like to get your thoughts, uh, closing remarks on today's program. You're mute, Frank.
The thing about it, I wanted just to complete um, the thoughts that I was talking about in habits of leadership.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to go get too much into it. The number 6 is to display your integrity. We need integrity in leadership. Be an optimist. And for this, there seems to be always something to be pessimistic about. However, you do not have to use that mindset because optimism is a mind frame that helps you stay hopeful about the future. Build a positive and encouraging network, a work environment. As many businesses face the issue of dealing with we call negative employees, pettiness, cliques, and negativity. So you have to ensure that all your employees are aware that you do not tolerate that type of behavior. You have to adapt quickly. Effective leadership involves molding your leadership approach to match your team. And however, since your team usually changes, your leadership approach will have to change as well. And finally, provide employees with the tools they need to success. Recognize that all your employees are unique, while some need to be monitored quite closely and need mentorship. Others will thrive when working independently. So it is your job to pay attention to such details. With all that said, how to change and improve your leadership habits as I close on. Virtually everyone has bad habits, and it is crucial to overcome them and replace them with positive habits. Old habits are especially difficult to break since they are related for long periods of time and become ingrained in one's mind. However, overcoming bad habits is possible if you use the right strategies. So you start by identifying your bad habits, identify why you use it daily. Has it become part of your personality? Are you afraid to try new leadership styles or strategies? Do you not trust your team? There's always a root cause for bad leadership habits. Identify it before moving on. And next, you must create an environment where you can use new good habits and avoid the prior bad habits. You do this by asking your team to keep you accountable. Ensure everyone feels comfortable with giving you feedback and critiquing your communication, delegation, motivation, and so on. So having a mentor help you use this new habit can also be beneficial. Then those mentors can motivate you to keep trying even when your mind wants to resort to bad habit. And this process will take time and trial with error. So you need to continue to adapt and stay flexible according to your mentor and team's feedback. And over time, you will establish a new good habit and stop using the bad habit. I thank you for being here.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. And Shivani, your closing thoughts?
Thanks, Gary. Now, everything that we have been speaking about in terms of how do you get these habits, you have to learn it. How could you now develop a habit? Right? You have to develop it with practice. You have to develop it by learning something. Because you don't know what you don't know, as we continuously say. And the habit that I want us to develop more and more is continuous learning. This is a massive concept, a big concept for everyone in leadership, for everybody. Anything that you do, you have to constantly learn something. It's continuous learning, we will call it. Do not think that you have learned something and it will work forever. The knowledge may be there and it may work now, but you need things to build around that knowledge, which is what I call the continuous learning. It really helps, right? So you need to evolve. You cannot evolve if you do not practice continuous learning. It also shows that there's a lot of literature that says that if you practice and you read something new every day, you will be able to grow and develop much more. So when we say continuous learning, don't think that you have to go and study something new for long periods of time. My little take on it is every 30 minutes every single day I learn something new. So sometimes not 30 minutes, 15 minutes, I will focus on something new, something totally out of my comfort zone. Because when you do it out of your comfort zone, what you're really doing is that you're expanding your knowledge now to do better problem solving. The example with steel pan that I give, I'm not into the pan. I don't go so often to pan. I don't play pan. So it's not something that I do. But just going to the panyards and listening and seeing how the teacher actually puts together a class, it opened up my mind to many, many different things that I'm going to create content based on it is now. So you learning, as we said, is everywhere. You don't have to be in a classroom. I'm a project manager, you're a leader, you're a strategic consultant. When you just go to different, I get different ideas, just walking around, as we see, you will then be able to put it back in some context that you will build and evolve it even more. So I'm very excited about the concept of with the steel pan that I want to embark on. I think it's going to be fabulous. So that just came about because I want to learn, which is continuous learning, and it helps me to problem solve and actually, take it in a different way. Thanks for that, Gary.
Great share. Continuous learning. Love it. PT, your closing remarks?
Yeah, Gary. And what I'd like to just pass on to our audience as we listen, what we want to within our drive, where the master plan takes is concerned, where human growth, our focus, human growth, because as I said, it's our passion because um, when we look around and we see people are not really tapping into their best, the best of who they can be, and utilize the skills that are necessary as within the context of planning and mastering themselves, mastering their abilities, and within, as I said, now within the context of the master plan technique, um, we want individuals to understand what is in our best interest as humanity, as a people, as an individual. It is within our best interest. And a lot of times when we think along the lines of what's in our best interest, it might sound selfish, but it is not. It is not, because what we do have a broader context to it. And when we consider that, um, and I'm going to now just use one word that is within the message, because we talk about master, right? And a while ago, what I was actually saying is that the first concept of the master plan technique ask the question of who is the master, right? Because if I'm gonna, mastery can cause me to become a little bit proud, because and that is what has been happening to humanity overall, because we have access to the power of harnessing the resources or physical resources, and the mastery that we have over the other life species has driven us now to the edge where we now have to ask the question of who really is the master. And we're coming to understand that, because we are here for a very short time, we come in and we go out, we have no real control, really. So we really have to understand that we are really, as human beings, we're really not the masters, because we have a beginning and an end date. So we are not truly the masters. So then we have to begin to ask ourselves certain questions now of who is the master. And when we can understand who the master is, then we're going to understand there is an echo. There is an echo that carries a message. And if we're really looking, if we really want to save ourselves, then we have to divorce ourselves from the concept of the I am the master. We gotta become be humbled. We gotta become humbled to understand that there is something greater than ourselves, and that there is a message that life comes. There's a message that comes through life, and it is a message. And I'm gonna sound kind of my children, a particular, when we went mushy, and I'm going to become mushy here, but within our best interest, when we understand that if we're going to operate within our best interest, there's one word that is going to come out in this message, and it is a message of love. And when I say this now, right, I'm not trying to be mushy, but it is within our best interest. It is within our best interest to love. It is within our best interest to love self. And it is within our best interest in the love of self to provide a service to somebody else that is going to provide a service back to me. And then we can correlate, because at the end of the day, the best interest is going to equate to be a love of society, right? And in that love of society, then it is within my best interest, even if I don't like the person, it is within my best interest to protect the person. Because as we were saying, whatever happens when the ecosystem begins to fall apart, then it's not just my enemy who is going to be in danger. It's all of us, because we're all in this big ship that we call life. So I cannot do something to harm somebody else without realizing that it's going to come back to harm me. So we look at the global landscape of what is happening in our world, and what is happening in business, and what is happening, where even the subject matters that we're talking about, and how do we make habits of what we do on a regular basis. It's going to boil down, to, how do we preserve this place that we're all sharing, this place of life. And I say, and I'm gonna just close right here, Gary, that the problems that we're having right now can be solved like that. The problems that we're all having right now, the wars that are taking place, all of it can be solved just like that, when we understand it is with our self-interest that we navigate ourselves. I'll stop right there, Gary.
All right, Peter. I just want to take away a couple of things from what you're saying. I think empathy, love, care, compassion, and gratitude, it's a language that we perhaps have to start teaching, because sometimes I tend to believe that people have grown distant from empathy, love, care, compassion, gratitude. So perhaps it's a language that we need to be, give birth in the classroom. Now, I want to conclude on the points that I've raised early on. I talk about evidence-based leadership, and I said this stands on three important pillars: your ability to think ahead, your ability to see beyond problems, and your ability to take informed action. Now, in conclusion, I want to say this. Whether you want to access capital, or you want to start and scale a business and take it IPO, or you want to build personal wealth, evidence-based leadership relates to you. The key concept is, are you thinking ahead about these things that you want to accomplish in the right way? Are you seeing beyond the problems, or are you being stuck in the problem zone? And last but not least, when you want to get out of that problem zone, because very often you may not have the skill set, but you want to come to this point of taking informed action, there are four things that you can do. One, you can invest in continuous learning. Shivani did say this. And as you invest in continuous learning, what you're doing, you are enhancing your personal expertise. And as you enhance your personal expertise, you're better placed in that position of strength to be able to think ahead, see beyond problems, and take informed action, because you now have the body of knowledge to influence the desired outcome that you want in life. So that's one thing that you can do. The second thing that you can do is get a mentor. And on this platform, you have a lot of mentors that understand business and leadership and project management and They understand these platforms, and we will be happy to mentor you in this regard because we have years of experience in our field that can help you to make more insightful decisions. The third step that you can take when you want to take informed action, you can get a coach, all right? A cheerleader that's going to be giving you the tips and the tricks and the strategies to implement your business models, your financial strategies, your wealth building game plan, and for success. Because, yes, we have years of experience in those fields. You can get a sponsor, all right? You can get a sponsor. And I'm going to give you an extra one here. You need to get a supportive community. Habits that you want to own and master, get a mentor, get a coach, get a sponsor, become a part of a supportive community. Even leaders, great leaders, they have supportive communities. The wealthiest people in the world, they have supportive communities. All right. Don't think that they know everything. They too have mentors. They too have coach. You know. So these are some habits that I just want to throw out with you today. And I trust that today, Monday, you would have found today's program interesting as we look at habits and leadership and business. So, with that being said, I want to thank my team for being here today. I want to thank the audience who are viewing us from across the world. And remember, if you are looking and you did not press the subscribe button, do subscribe to our channel so you will be the first to get these content that we are bringing to you on a regular basis. I want to thank Frank for taking the time to be with us today to share with us from his knowledge as an economist and a leader. I want to thank Shabani for always making herself present, and she always warm us with her knowledge of project management and the significant role that project management really plays in leadership and, in fact, every aspect of what we are doing. And thanks for that share. I want to also thank Peter for always showing up and representing from a theological standpoint. From his standpoint, he always talk about human growth, and it's understandable because I think as being grounded in theology, it's all about leading humanity to the promised land. So, Peter, we're with you and preparing to go to the promised land that is flowing with milk and honey, right? So, with that being said, I want to say to the audience, do have a great week ahead of you, and we will do this again tomorrow. Thanks, guy, and we see you guys